Okay, so I know that
Mm-hmm.
because he lets me know that.
Yeah.
So then if I'm working on a project, I may work on it at home or I may go to my studio, but I try and go to the studio at least a few days a week. But like doing those last 3 sculptures, I hadn't made large sculptures in a number of years. I did many smaller ones, but not big ones like these pieces are. And so I was like out of the creative loop for making these large pieces. So the first one took a very long time. The second one, not quite as long, and the third was very, very quick. But, oftentimes a lot of what you end up doing with creative work, you do something and then you sit and you look at it. You just look at it, okay? Because you can't let it go until you decide that it's okay. So I spent a lot of time futzing with this first one and then just sitting with it because there's a communing that has to happen sometimes. So it's kind of like I'm not working, but I'm still working. So if I'm doing stuff on my computer, then I usually stay at home to do that. But I don't really have like rituals beyond the Frank thing. I like to be in quiet when I'm working. Not so much with 3D stuff, but I also do a lot of work with language. A lot of my work has text to it. And so when I'm doing that, because I may take an image and I write stuff about it. I have this whole project about family slides that my father took when we were growing up in my family. So it's like a slide project. So I run them off on my computer, the images, and then I look at them on the computer because I can see them better. And then I just start writing about what I'm seeing. And it's interesting because part of what I'm looking for in the images is the color yellow. I'm looking for hope in these pictures. So I write about whether I see hope or not amongst the people in the images. And so it's like a free form thing that happens. And when I'm doing that kind of work, writing work, I need to have the world be more quiet when I'm doing that. So I can focus on it. And then other times, because it's common for me to have a text that either goes on an object or accompanies an object that I've made. Now, I haven't done that with those large furniture sculptures before, but I could actually start that. So I might be working on a collage or a shadow box or something, and I'll have a big tablet next to me. So I'm writing down words and thoughts and phrases and ideas as I'm making the visual piece, and that's very common for me to do that. So I like quiet when I'm doing that. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, it depends on the needs of the project. I may work at something like many hours a week, and other projects I may not work that much with them. But I also find that because I make so many different kinds of work, I have so many bodies of work, that it's helpful for me if I have something that's happening with something. Then I can focus on that. Otherwise, it may just be I just keep working and working and working until I feel like a project's done. But I also may have what I call like long-term projects that I may work on or have a goal with them. Like I may want to do like 60 of something or 50 of something. So I keep working at it, off and on until I get to the place where I want to get with it. So I also have noticed that my work often, if I do something that's large, it's a larger expression, then the next project that I do has to be something that's small and tight. And then I'll go back to larger the next time. And then I'll go back to small and tight again. It's just interesting how that happens.
Yeah. So with everything you've done and throughout your career, you've had to put yourself out there.
Oh my God, yes, yes.
So how do you approach those times when you're fearful about doing that, or just feeling, that maybe what you're working on isn't going to be well received? How do you overcome those elements and feelings of fear?
Well, I'm really glad that you asked that question, because I think it's an important thing for creative people to talk about amongst themselves and also to speak with others in the world about that topic. So I have to say that for myself, there are times that I can feel extremely confident about my work. And generally speaking, I guess, I probably feel that way most of the time. And it helps, of course, if you have a lot of things going on. Mm-hmm. Like if I have a lot of things coming up in the future, I have an artist talk, or, like I may have this photo shoot, or, I had the thing last week with ICFF, or I'm doing a talk with a gallery with an organization that I'm involved with this coming Wednesday. So the more things I have going on, I think it helps to feed into my confidence. And it's the times when there's not so much activity that you can start thinking, oh, the world's forgotten about me, even though maybe in 3 months the world's forgotten about you, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that sometimes I do feel afraid, and it's not so much about my work being ill-received. It's not that. It's more like, how can I describe it? I guess that sometimes it's the idea of putting yourself out there and trying to make things happen with the work that you've made. And that can be really scary. And I am thinking about the kinds of things that I would have to say to people who are trying to make things happen for themselves and may not have a lot of experience yet. One of the things that I would say is that fear is part of the package. Mm-hmm. It's part of the story. And, I may give myself pep talks. I talk to myself a lot sometimes, but anyway, I think pep talks are good. And you know what else is good? If you have any press anywhere, mm-hmm. read your flippin' press, okay? You read your press where people say these amazing things about you, and you think, you know what? That's me. That's mm-hmm. me they're writing about. So how does that feel? Let that in. So if people have press, that's another way they can use it to help themselves. It's another way to use it. I think it's a really important tool to use.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. I definitely agree. Because I know so many times when you're working on projects, it's so easy to forget about all the positive things that were said about you and just get stuck in your head and focus on all the negatives. So having that reminder is a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, like in thinking of other things that I could tell people in terms of what I've learned and advice for others, mm-hmm. I think that it's really important to discover your story. What is your story? You have to know your story. And then you should use that story to get as much publicity as you possibly can. But it's hard to get publicity unless you know what your story is. Mm-hmm. So, as I was saying earlier, I spent so much time just endlessly writing to find my story. And I was, determined to do that. I was determined that I was going to find it and be able to speak about it in an eloquent way and in a way that other people would enjoy listening to me describe it. Mm-hmm. And so that has been really important to me. And I think, too, that it's so interesting because you're even like I was interviewed for the art blog Hyperallergic. And maybe that was like 3 years ago or so, 3 or 4 years ago. And I read that interview, and it's like, I can't believe it. I was saying nothing. I was saying nothing. And like with all the writing and stuff that I have done and trying to get to the bottom of it and stuff, mm-hmm. I guess that I still wasn't quite there yet, even though I'd spent a lot of time doing that. But now what I'm saying, I compare and contrast. I say very different things now than I did then. I think that I was talking more about what I did, not the why of what I did,
Mm-hmm.
which are very different things. So then also I want to say that when you're trying to find what to do and how to do it, I want to caution people to be very wary when hiring people to help you with things. Helping with marketing plans, helping with to act as a mentor, because in the art world especially, artists are so insecure. Mm-hmm. They're very insecure, and I also believe that many artists can be more, you're more introverted is the word I'm seeking. That they're happy being in their studio and making work and not so much communing with other people. Mm-hmm. And so when you go out and you seek someone to help you, perhaps you're not really that adept in dealing with people, and you may not be able to suss out when someone is really genuine and when someone's not. Mm-hmm. And it's like any other profession. What's that expression? Many serve, but few are called. Okay, that's the expression. Many people are doctors, but not that many are really healers. There are only a few people who are true healers. And the people that are really, really gifted at their craft, I don't think that there are that many of them. And if you don't have a lot of experience with people and hiring people, I think that artists especially get themselves into trouble by simply not having enough experience to figure out who they should give their money to help them get places. Mm-hmm. So then I would also say, and this is attached to the idea of being scared. Let's not say fear, let's say being scared. Okay, I'm scared now. All right, we're scared. What are we going to do? You have to be willing to be scared. And part of that willingness is you have to be able to stretch yourself and step into the unknown. And there are no two ways about that. You can't have it any other way. Mm-hmm. And as I was saying before, the idea of stretching and growing as a person, and then having your art and your business life grow along with you as you grow as a person. And all these things really very much go hand in hand with each other, mm-hmm. in my experience.
What would you say is the best advice you've ever received?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, this is like an art or a design piece of advice I was given. And I was told something like, it doesn't matter what color you choose, just start choosing the colors. And so, see, in terms of allowing myself to just be free and just, not match and it doesn't matter, that really hit me when I heard that, when I was told that. I thought, that's like another declaration of freedom, right? Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't matter what colors you're using because you put so much together, at least that's how I work. Mm-hmm. I put so many together that doesn't matter which ones you're using because they're all there. So it's not about matching, or, like I said, I always try to not match if I can do that. Mm-hmm. I try and, as I said, do everything backwards and do everything wrong. And actually, with that in mind, Yuri, I do have an article on LinkedIn. I have to plug this.
Okay.
And it's called How to Do Everything Wrong, a Manifesto. So it's all about how to do it wrong. And I tell people how they can get there, and because I'm also a recovering perfectionist, see. Mm-hmm. And that's part of helpful living in the world and being a creative person, is to be a recovering perfectionist. Mm-hmm. The idea that you can know what's good enough and you're not holding yourself back because you have these crazy ideas about perfect.
So, Apryl, thank you so much for chatting with me. I really appreciate it. If the listeners would like to see more of your artwork as well as read more about what you're working on, what is the best way they can do that?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram. I think probably Instagram is the best place. Of course, I tweet and